Mic was muted. Hello, welcome back everyone. After this short intermission, my name is Christian Høgel. I'm Professor of Greek and Latin in Lund, Sweden, and today it's my pleasure to introduce Marijana Vukovic, who's next presenter of her new book. So I'll say a few words, not about the book so much, but about Marijana, to introduce her to you. Many of you know her, I'm sure. So Marijana studied at the CEU in Budapest and also received her PhD there. And it is, to a large extent, the work coming out of that she has become a book now. And Marijana will tell more about that, I'm sure. But while working also on the Cult of Saints project in Oxford, she then also did a second PhD, actually, at the University of Oslo, which resulted in, well, a thesis and a book, the monograph Survival and Success of an Apocryphal Childhood of Jesus, Reception of the Infancy Gospel of Thomas in the Middle Ages, which came out in 2022 at the Reuters. So Marijana covers a very large area, you could say, from medieval studies with focus on hagiography, but also on other types of literary text in the literary text, and going all the way to what we could call a history of religion. She has then, after that, worked, or at the same time, in a sense, from 2020 to 2023, she worked as a postdoc in the research project Retracing Connections, Byzantine Story Worlds in Greek, Arabic, Georgian, and Old Slavonic. And her contribution there has been very much to work on the metaphrastic texts that have been translated into Slavonic, and in general, hagiography translated into Slavonic. But as also her early work, and also the thing we'll be hearing of today, Marijana has worked very much across languages, so Latin, Greek, Slavonic, and even Georgian are included in her work. And then for the last 2 years, from 2024 and still in the present, she is working on a project called Retrieving a Forgotten Byzantine Hagiography Collection from Georgian, John Xyphilinos' Saints' Lives, out of which already publications have come. But I should also advise you all that you may hear of more of that if you go, if you search for Gerda Henkel, which has been the foundation funding the project, and search for Xyphilinos, you will find some lovely videos with Marijana explaining her work and the project as such. So, but please, Marijana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christian, for the kind introduction. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, and thank you to the organizers for putting on such a fantastic event. I would like to share my screen. And I hope you can see it now. Yes, so during my previous participation in the Edinburgh Book Festival, I started my presentation with these exact words that I will say now, that this book does not belong exclusively to the field of Byzantine studies. It results from interdisciplinary PhD research, incorporating the study of hagiography across languages, manuscript transmission, studies of memory and forgetting, archaeology, and literary theory. Despite being an unconventional contribution here, I'm here today to highlight those aspects of the book that could resonate with scholars working in the field of Byzantine studies. The book comparatively approaches the entire hagiographical dossier of a saint, as Christian said, in Latin. I'm sorry, you don't see the. Yes, so the book comparatively approaches the entire hagiographical dossier of a saint in Latin, Greek, Old Slavonic, Georgian, and Armenian languages. Much of the material is recovered from manuscripts. This approach is beneficial for obtaining a thorough overview of the temporal relations among the hagiographical versions. Although I'm not promoting here the quest for the original text method, since I'm not in favor of that one. My experience working on these texts confirms the centrality of Greek versions in studying saints' hagiographies, and this could probably apply to many other dossiers. The book discusses how the saint was reconfigured, reimagined, marginalized, and ultimately removed from calendars, and logia, and the larger framework of Christian cultural memory, using an interlingual approach to textual reuse and combining cross-cultural transmission with the study of memory and forgetting. In analyzing textual versions, I use narratology and intertextuality, the approach also proposed in the volume on metaphrasis, co-edited by Christian and Stavrola Constantinou. As for the specifics, the book includes, to my knowledge, the first visual representation of the prayer for the emperor, an essential textual component concluding each saint's life in the imperial Menologion dedicated to the Emperor Michael IV Paphlagonian. The image in question is from the manuscript Moscow, Synodal Graecus 183, while the illuminations of this manuscript have been published before in black and white. I here bring an image of Irenaeus' martyrdom in color, in which we can actually see this lavish ornamentation with extensive use of gold. However, the image of the prayer for the emperor has not been published earlier. This image is important, I believe, because it clearly shows the prayer structure, which is difficult to understand from reading scholarship alone. At least this was my case. The prayer forms an acrostic, Michael P, as you can see, which consists mainly of minuscule letters in the manuscript Moscow Synodal 183. However, only from the image, one can understand that these letters are colored by an intense red shade, which differs from the rest of the text. And you can actually understand how the whole acrostic idea functions in this manuscript. And it is also important to say that the copies of the later imperial Menology in the following centuries abandoned this effort to form the text in such a way, and also abandoned the shading of letters. So the prayer for the emperor was no longer distinguished from the rest of the text. Acquiring these images for research is a story in itself. During my visit to the Государственный исторический Museum in Moscow, when I arrived at the actual reading room, I was told that no direct access to the manuscript would be possible. So yes, there I was, and there was a literal wall separating me from the manuscript, but that was it. And instead I was offered these digital copies, and they were nice, they were visible. And then to publish the images for this book is another story in itself. In 2023, when the book was prepared and the Russian-Ukrainian conflict was well underway, Russia was cut ties with the rest of Europe symbolically, but also quite literally, in the sense that the payments for the publication of the images could be made only by using Russian credit cards. So thanks to the support of Russian colleagues here, I must mention my colleague Roman Shlyaktin, who helped with those permissions, I could proceed with publishing the images. And with it, I believe the broader understanding of the imperial Menologia and the prayers dedicated to the emperor could be brought to light. Besides discussing this manuscript, I include a few other manuscripts of imperial Menologia connected to this Paphlagonian collection, and particularly Jerusalem Panagiou Tafo 17, which is a related but less known witness. And with it, this book adds to the earlier scholarship on imperial Menologia by Nancy Shevchenko, Francois Halkin, Francesco D'Aiuto de Torakis, and others. The book also discusses several canons dedicated to the saint, included in the collections of Byzantine Menaia, particularly in the chapter 6, attributed either to prominent hymnographers of the Middle Byzantine period, such as Joseph the hymnographer, or otherwise anonymous. By examining the relationship of canons with the main hagiographical dossier of a saint, I explore how liturgical poetry and hagiography interact, sometimes reinforcing, but also sometimes subtly altering the saint's identity. Another interesting theme discussed in the same chapter is merging saints into groups, a characteristic pattern generally in Byzantium, in hagiography, but also in visual arts. Rather than being merely additive, these groups reflect specific theological, mnemonic, and political strategies. And I examine how they operated in Menologia and what this tells us about the Byzantine strategies of collective sanctity and remembrance. Important contribution to the book is the archaeology of Sirmium, and I here built on the work of mainly Serbian archaeologists who excavated in the site, and I supplement this section with some rarely seen images. Some of them were generously provided by the Museum of Srem, such as this one, from the excavation of the site in Mačanska Mitrovica, and others from my personal collection from the now largely abandoned site. And you can see that it is actually the same site, just in different periods. One of the book's contributions is the English translation of a hagiographical text preserved only in an old Georgian manuscript from a lost Byzantine Menologion composed by John Xiphilinus the Younger, an 11th century literatus. And as Christian mentioned, I'm currently conducting some further research on this Menologion as part of my project on John Xiphilinus' saints' lives, where we transcribe and translate 13 additional saints' lives into English from the same collection. The investigation of memory in this book continues into the present day. So the modern city of Sremska Mitrovica, which takes the place of ancient Sirmium, revived the memory of its early Christian martyrs, including Irenaeus, through local initiatives, including constructing a new church named after Sirmian martyrs and naming a street and a pedestrian bridge after him. This saint has been reintegrated into contemporary identity discourses by the acts that are not simply nostalgic, but demonstrate how sacred memory becomes active and politically meaningful in new historical contexts. Thus, the book moves across disciplinary boundaries, sources, languages, and centuries. It engages both the textual and the visual, the ancient and the contemporary, and the academic, also personal. While not formally, as I said, within Byzantine studies, I hope it will speak meaningfully to it and perhaps extend its borders a little. And for the end, I would like to take a moment and dedicate it to the memory of several scholars who supported this work in various ways and who are no longer with us. Marian Shagi, Javor Miltenov, Enrico Gabizashvili, and Robert H. Jordan. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Marijana. And I forgot to mention or to tell people that, of course, you can leave your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the page or the screen, at least on my screen, but I think it's there. So please do come with questions or comments for Marijana if you have any. I can, if nobody comes at the moment, I can start the questions. So Marijana, this is impressive work, of course, very much simply by the fact that you are crossing so many languages and traditions in that sense also. So how, to what extent, now you say you work on the basis of intertextuality and narratology, to what extent are we sort of on safe ground, would you say, when we're doing these things? Because the references, the connotations of words and locations, as you show, then in a Slavonic context, it will carry all these connotations. In others, the text might carry less because we don't know. So how do you work with this kind of when it's such a wide phenomenon? a phenomenon that spreads so widely?
Yes, thank you, Christian, for this question. It's a very relevant question, and we spend a lot of time talking about it, of course. And you could see the image of one example of this comparison. Well, my aim in this work was to take in whatever I could find, right? And that was a process that didn't happen overnight. It was a process of several years where I managed to trace and collect all the material, including Latin, initially Greek, and Old Slavonic, but eventually finding out about Georgian and Armenian versions and covering these as well. That was not easy in itself. To apply narratology and intertextuality as a method, yes, that was additional challenge to the whole work, and I believe it was a little bit easier with intertextuality because I defined it as tracing parts of the text, parts of one text in another text. So whatever corresponded literally within two versions, I could ascribe to intertextuality. And this is what I underlined in the example that I showed in the PowerPoint. So whatever was literal, the same words, the same phrases or sentences, I could underline them and ascribe it to this and interpret it through intertextuality. However, the rest of the text, and this is, I think, what both you and I are more interested in, comes down to rewriting or metaphrasis, and it is definitely more interesting what happens there. And these questions, I believe, are still open, and they are being advanced lately. Since there has been a rise in the interest in metaphrasis lately, so many volumes were published. So I believe that we will soon have some, let's say, adequate tool to study, maybe digital tool to study these things. Yeah, that's my hope.
It is a very large material with an enormous fluctuation. It's fluid text, and yes.
That's right.
Still.
That's right. And then it's we have a question, I think.
We have a question. Can you see it also? I can also read it. What factors led to the decline in popularity of Irenaeus's cultus from Callum Hendleman?
What factors? That's an interesting question. First of all, I did focus on, as I say, forgetting in this volume. However, I use forgetting as a concept from two scholars. One of them is Paul Ricoeur, another is Paul Connerton, and they in their work they come up with a couple of concepts. One of them is forgetting as annulment, where the text is treated as a surplus of information, therefore it is being suppressed and treated as irrelevant memory. The other one is referring to secondary remembrance or forgetting that preserves, and that implies recollection. So there are certain things in history that we can forget, but they emerge and re-emerge in some later periods. So this is how I deal with the notion of forgetting in this book. And what were the factors that contributed to the well, I believe they are many, and I'm trying to discuss most of them, but they are visible. They are visible through the calendars. The chapter, I believe chapter 3, discusses the calendars and how the feast day of this saint was moved from date to date. Eventually, he was just expelled from the collections of Menologia, and this is a palpable evidence to conclude that one is no longer wished for in these kind of collections. Yes, and when it comes to archaeology, I'm trying to see what is happening, what kind of cult re-emergence happens on the site, and it is quite evident that because the territory was at the crossroads, there's a succession of many people and ethnic groups coming and going, and due to this a proper maintenance of memory could not be maintained, held, let's say. So yeah, all these factors, I believe, influence the saint to become neglected and forgotten eventually, although it was a promising saint's cult at the beginning, because he was listed among those historically attested martyrs, and yeah, he would have all the credentials to be famous, but he was not.
Okay, I think we're running out of time, but thank you so much, Marijana, for your presentation and your answers, and congratulations with your work, also with the new images you provide us all with from the Imperial Minologia and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for the presentation of my work, and thank you for the questions, and to the organizers. Thank you.
So we are handing over. Yes, I think Judith Heron is doing the next presentation.